Festival. Hi, welcome. We are That's Absurd, Please Elaborate, which I hope some of you have heard of before, at least. And if not, thank you for wandering in here. We're going to waste the next 45 minutes of your time that you could spend learning about science from more qualified people just outside. We have one qualified person with us who we will introduce momentarily. But in case this is your first time listening to the show, sorry.
That's our usual.
That's the usual
what
apology that we provide for you up front. So if you're mad at the end, remember we said that at the beginning. This is a science and hopefully comedy show where we take questions from listeners or each other. We do some research on it. We come back, we present to each other. We have a laugh. We have a running joke or two. My mom gets a big kick out of it. That's basically the whole show. I am one of the two usual hosts. I am Julian Huguet.
Woo! I am one of the other two usual hosts, Trace Dominguez.
And we have an unusual guest host. This is Dr. Wallace Marshall.
University of California, San Francisco.
Yeah. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Woo! All right, so like we said, the first question that we answer is coming from actually Wallace himself.
Since you're here, why don't you actually tell us what your question was?
Well, so the question I had was, I got curious, if you had an all-you-can-eat buffet, is there an amount of food you could eat such that once you've eaten that much, you might as well keep eating because your body can't absorb any more from the meal? Because everyone says, oh, you should eat lots of small meals, but maybe that's not true. Maybe you should eat one gigantic meal, and that would actually lead to less calories or fat being taken up.
Right, so you hit some sort of saturation point for your body, and then it's like a life hack, like you can just keep eating endlessly.
Yeah, exactly. Eat to lose.
Right. At a certain point, and eat to put the buffet owner out of business as well. Make them regret the all-you-can-eat sign. Yes. It's challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Trace, you tackled this one.
I sure did. I pictured this like your digestive system doing the Lucille Ball sketch.
With the chocolates?
With the chocolates, where eventually the digestive system just can't pick up all the chocolates off the conveyor belt and shove them into the mouth, right?
We have a much younger audience than I expected. So
right.
Who among you that's under, like 12 likes 1950s black and white comedies? Does the Lucille Ball sketch? Yes, we've got one.
We got one. Great.
You're under 12? Wow. A little older. I'm going to put you at like 14. So it's a great reference, and you should watch it.
You could find a GIF, I'm sure, somewhere.
Even that's old now. GIFs are old people things, apparently.
Oh, no.
You mean GIFs?
GIFs?
Oh, don't start.
Let's not get into it. That's a whole other podcast.
Butter, sir, and I will not be elaborating further.
The first thing I want to say is there's probably not this, right? If there was this, we would know about it. But the whole point of the show is that things have to be a little bit absurd. And so I found this thing on, there's a website called Lumen Learning. It's a pretty fun website to learn things. And they had a quote that I thought really did a good job here, which was, the absorptive capacity of the alimentary canal is almost endless, which is not something you hear often in biology. Just like, no, it can just forever.
Just keep going.
It's fine. The reason that I bring it up is because almost is in there. So there's like a little window for maybe being able to do this. I also want to say, and I'm saying this on this campus specifically, but I find biology kind of yucky. Like overall, like it's like kind of, like oozes and there's bile and blood and ooze and yucky, and I don't ooze, yuck, ew.
Professor of biology, how do you feel about that sentence?
I agree. That's why I like it.
I thought I was going to get pushback. But okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
okay. Great.
No, that's fine.
So top level, who remembers like digestion from their high school biology classes, from their elementary school biology classes? Have you learned about how digestion works, right? So you eat food, it goes into your stomach, into your small intestine, your large intestine, out through your rectum and your colon if you aren't going to digest it. But in between there, your body is taking those nutrients out of your food and using them. And that is all done through chemistry. Now, the chemistry of digestion is actually super interesting, even though I don't think that things that ooze and bleed and are yucky they're not for me. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't learn about them. And so I spent a lot of time reading about the chemistry of digestion and just getting very excited. So if you eat a living thing, you're digesting every part of that living thing, whether it's a plant or an animal or whatever. You're digesting the cells, the stuff in the cells, all the little pieces of all the little stuffs in the cells, and all of that has to be broken down into stuff that you can use, which means there is something in your body that can digest the small part of the small part of the small part of the thing that you ate for almost everything you eat. Like, that's wild.
Thanks, body.
Yeah, it's really neat. So, for example, you eat a carbohydrate. It's a sugar. So there are simple sugars like monosaccharides, and those are like glucose, sucrose, fructose from different, like fructose is fruit sugar, right? They're just picked up and put into the blood because your body can take those things and use them. But disaccharides, like a milk sugar or a lactose, how many people in here are lactose intolerant? That means that your body doesn't have the chemistry to break down that sugar.
Right, lactase.
And,
right?
Lactase,
The enzyme
exactly.
that breaks it down, yeah.
And so if you don't make lactase, then you can't break down lactose. And what ends up happening is it kind of does sort of what Wallace is talking about, where it just continues on through the alimentary canal and you don't digest it. Yeah, I think everyone who has lactose intolerance knows what happens if you eat too much ice cream. It's not fun.
Thank you for the contribution. Yes.
So there's also complex sugars, polysaccharides, things like amylose, amylopectin. And these are basically glucose, but in a big like chain.
Yeah.
So it's a single molecule glucose. It's a very simple sugar that your body can use for energy. Who knows the chemical formula for glucose? Everyone who's had organic chemistry. Somebody shout it out.
Isn't it C6H12O6?
C6H12O6, that's right. And that glucose molecule, your body can use that, and it can do stuff with it. But all of the other complex sugars, they have to break it all down into that super simple sugar in order to use it. The interesting thing, like cellulose, which we're not particularly good at digesting as humans, but other animals are particularly good at it, like gorillas or pandas that eat a lot of cellulose. That's basically a glucose ribbon of like hundreds and hundreds of glucoses, kind of. That's a simple way to think about it. And our body just doesn't have the time and energy to break it all down. And so it's pretty cool to think about all of the things that are going on inside of our bodies just so that we can do whatever we do every single day. This is happening in your body all the time. So kind of to Wallace's point, I was a little bit converted on like, this is cool. Like this kind of the chemistry part of digestion. I don't know, maybe it's because you're small enough that now it's not ooze anymore. It's just molecules. Now I'm into it. Is that cool? I don't know.
Yeah, it oozes at bigger scales. Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
like not into the macro level digestion where it's like you get into the
You zoom in on ooze and it becomes okay.
Like you don't like fat globules,
right. Yeah,
I don't even like the sound of the word globule.
but you like the mouthfeel.
In two ways. Ew.
So what happens with something like a carbohydrate is your pancreatic amylase works on that starch and that carbohydrate to kind of break it down. Again, the lactase would split lactose into glucose and galactose. And I thought this was cool. Even DNA inside the cells that you're eating. So you're eating a bit of celery. That celery has DNA in it. Your body breaks down that DNA also. There are different pancreatic nuclease enzymes specifically that just act on DNA molecules, specifically DNA and RNA, and break them down into their nucleotides so that you can use the component parts for energy. Is that not mind-blowing? That our body just does, it's just like, oh, we've got some DNA here, everybody, get the pancreatic enzymes.
I mean, yeah, all the stuff we're going to eat.
Yeah.
Right? Assuming you're not eating inorganic, like rocks,
Which we have done a show about, how many rocks you could eat.
They recommend 3 to 5 a day. That's a joke. Please don't eat rocks.
Don't eat rocks. Okay, so I have a joke here.
Okay, I'm ready.
So it's amazing, but squirty. And I don't like the squirty oozy in the intestines. So let's just follow glucose through the intestinal system, okay?
Okay.
No, glucose isn't K, that's potassium.
That was the joke. Don't hey-oh that.
Okay, so into the small intestine, you end up like basically imagine the inside of a hose. In your mind, you're probably imagining something quite clean. Now imagine your hose is furry, but on the inside. Yeah, ew, right? Kind of ew. That is literally kind of how the small intestine works. And the reason it does that, it has these little villi, like little teeny protrusions inside of your small intestine. The reason those are there is to increase the surface area of the small intestine. The small intestine is already really long, right? If we stretched it out, it would be taller than a house, but it's wound up all in our gut. And then on top of that, we evolved these villi to absorb even more nutrients so that we have more and more absorption to be able to use for our big old brains. Now, the villi, there are 10 and 40 villi per square millimeter. Now that's a lot. That ends up to be about 25,000 per square inch of gut. So that's quite a bit. Each villus has a central core composed of an artery, a vein, a little bit of muscle, a centrally located lymphatic capillary called a lacteal, and then a connective tissue that helps support it so it stands up so that all the fluid in your gut goes around it, and again, increasing that surface area. It also has a membrane on the outside, and that is where we get to the question at hand, is something has to take your glucose molecule that's floating through your intestine, pull it into that membrane cell, and then push it out the other side into the bloodstream inside of the villi. That thing is called a transport protein. Some scientist was like, oh, it's transporting it from there to here. So a transport protein, imagine if you make your hands into a V where the opening is at the top. What happens is glucose kind of floats by, and two little sodium ions and glucose together kind of float into that V, and the V traps it. And that's called protein folding, which is pretty amazing. And we don't have time to get into it, but it's pretty darn cool. And there are people here at the Science Festival that are talking about some of the biology that happens. This is a molecule that just, when those two little sodium ions and the glucose touch it, it folds and grabs it on a molecular level, just from chemistry. Then, once it's in there, it folds again and makes the V open on the inside of the cell and lets everything out. And then the glucose is in the cell, goes to the other side of the cell and into the bloodstream.
Cellular airlock on a space station.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yes. That's cool. And this happens again. It's all just chemistry. There's not like some little inside out blob in there with a personality being like, okay, get it in here, pull in the glucose. And it's just this little molecule. It's just so cool. This thing is called an SGLT1. Sodium glucose cotransporter 1. And there's, of course, a sodium glucose cotransporter 2, because, again, they're really good at branding and sciences.
And the sequel, this first one was so good, they're like, we need a sequel.
The second one really just shows up in the kidneys. It didn't, it's more of a direct to video kind of like kind of situation.
Streaming services right away.
Yeah. Well, I think the first one would be on streaming services if you think about the gut.
Right.
And then the second one, well, I guess it would also be streaming services because the kidney, it makes the pee. So, I don't know. It depends.
It was a long walk to a pee joke. But yes, we did get there, ladies and gentlemen.
So saturated is what can happen, is basically what Wallace is asking, right? You're asking if these transport proteins can be saturated, which is the chemistry term for basically they're all full. They've folded around a bit of glucose so they can't grab another one. The one that's floating by just gets left in your alimentary canal, your digestion. This happens in real life to people. We already talked about it with lactose intolerance, right? In the case of something like lactose, there's not a good transporter protein that can grab it and move it into your villi and into your bloodstream. So it just floats down your digestion, and then you get gassy and diarrhea. And the reason you get diarrhea is because...
I was just what I was going to guess regardless of what the answer was.
Diarrhea.
So, like no matter what
honestly,
answer,
it's safe. Like what's the if you're going to mess with something in the gut, what's going to happen?
Yeah, what's going to happen?
It's going to be
good
diarrhea.
bet.
Well, either too much of a good thing or not enough of a good thing, I guess, right? It's either diarrhea or constipation, one or the other. So what ends up happening with something like a lactose intolerance, because these molecules draw water to them, you end up with just more water in your gut. And so what would happen if this could happen and you could saturate these SGLT1s is you would end up with a lot of water in your intestines and you just have a lot of diarrhea. So I don't know if you'd really want to eat a lot at that buffet. Be like, I can just keep eating, but...
I'm going to get my money's worth. The bathroom is also free at this buffet. I see this as an absolute win.
You're thinking like a Roman.
So it doesn't seem like there's any way for these to get saturated. So back to that quote at the top, right? The absorptive capacity of the alimentary canal is almost endless. I think what they meant by almost is sometimes things just don't get absorbed, and the body has a system for that. They just put it out as waste. These transport proteins exist on every one of those membrane cells. They are everywhere, and there are so many of them that it's just impossible. However, there is a case where you can have an SGLT1 inhibitor. And the reason that this might exist is because there are people who may not want to be absorbing extra glucose. They may want to limit how much glucose gets into their blood. Anybody want to guess what that might be? Somebody with?
Diabetes.
So they're exploring drugs that would inhibit...
I'm on fire today.
You really... You really are.
Diarrhea, diabetes. The
Dialectics. I don't know. Like what?
Scientology is going to come up somehow. Dianetics. That's Dianetics. That's
Okay. Well, whatever. You want to bring it up? You can.
No, it's fine. I don't want them to know I exist.
So what ends up happening with this drug? It is essentially rams the door open of that V. It doesn't let the protein fold and ends up kind of jamming itself in there, inhibiting this transport protein. So if you want to eat unlimited amounts of a buffet, I guess you could invent an SGLT1 inhibitor, and just I don't know, overdose on it. But then you'd have really bad diarrhea. Really bad.
So there is a downside.
Do you want to mention a lie? Have you looked
The lie.
a lie?
A lie. No, please talk about it.
Talk about a lie.
So this is just for clarity. He studies this and he made me talk about it, which is the most professorial thing I can think of.
Yeah. How did he do? Was it good?
Yeah, no, totally dead on. I mean, basically, you mimicked all of my paranoid conspiracies about this. You really touched on, but one of those is a lie, which is this drug, which is just what you say, but it's to inhibit the transporter for fat.
Yeah.
And so it does exactly what you said. It blocks the transporter so that you eat as much fat as you want, and it doesn't get absorbed. But then what happens is just what you said would happen, and it greases up all your sphincters. And
greasy sphincter.
You have a talent for the worst combination of words that I've ever heard.
It greases up your sphincter.
Fat globules coming out of greasy sphincters. Nobody's going to eat ever
I'm just
again.
telling it like it is.
Okay. So, but the idea of this drug is you can eat as much fat as you want, and then
That was the idea. And so the thing about it is that it works biochemically. But what ends up happening is exactly what Trace got at, which is that you end up not wanting to eat anything with a lot of fat in it because you want to avoid what they refer to as treatment side effects, which is, if you want to say it,
diarrhea.
yeah. And so it ends
Thank
up
you.
working, but it's almost more like it conditions you not to want to eat fatty meals because you know what's going to happen.
That's cruel to yourself, I feel like.
And it was kind of like, if you remember the whole thing with Olestra?
That's what I was thinking. Does
Yeah.
anybody remember? Oh man, I bet a lot of people were not around for when Olestra was a thing in chips. Does anybody know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
No,
A few people.
some of you, yes, some of you know. So for a hot second there, chip brands of names that we won't name.
Mention.
Yeah, but it rhymes with like pedo praise. They put Olestra in their chips. And it was supposed to be like, oh, wow, you can just eat more chips and not gain as much weight. Isn't that great? And then there were anecdotes, at least, I don't know how official it was, of a phenomenon. Oh, prepare for another horrible combination of words. Anal leakage. Yeah, that's the correct response. And so Olestra went away pretty quick after that. So so what was the idea of Olestra?
So Olestra is basically you take a bunch of fat molecules and glue them all together so that now they're in this giant complex that cannot be transported through a transporter. So it's the same basic idea.
Gotcha. And do you want to speak to the veracity of anal leakage? Sorry.
Well, it was definitely a thing. It was never actually. The urban legend is that Frito-Lay or some manufacturer put it as a warning label on the. And that's actually not true. It was never on a warning label.
Okay, and then so this is like pre-Reddit. Somebody managed to make this rumor about anal leakage go viral. I blame Robin Williams because he mentioned it in a stand-up routine.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's why I still remember it vividly. So sorry, no, you can't have your Olestra chips anymore. That was a brief, 2000s dalliance.
But man, imagine those greasy sphincters. Just imagine. I mean, just here. This is what I'm thinking.
Well, it probably had like.
Oh,
Yes!
that's an audio
This is
medium.
so
I don't
fun
like
having
it.
a live audience. I love it. Sorry.
Okay, so that's it for my question. So why don't we move on and we'll have Wallace.
All right. Well, that's Trace's question taken care of, and now Wallace, you tackled one yourself from a listener.
Yeah, so the question that I got, a listener had written in with a question saying, well, what if you could make tardigrades a lot bigger? And so I want to try to elaborate on that question, but first I just want to say I think it would be a very bad idea. But let me start by just reviewing what tardigrades are. Probably many of you have seen or heard about tardigrades, but for those who haven't, they're these tiny little creatures. They're about 0.5 millimeter long. They're little animals. They're transparent. They have 8 chubby little legs that they walk with. and they live mostly on mosses and lichens. And they're kind of famous not only for being cute, but also because they're incredibly resistant to a lot of stresses. Like they can survive freezing, they can survive extremely high temperature. You can gas them with poison gas and they don't die. You can put them in a complete vacuum and they don't die.
Like they can go to space,
Yeah,
right?
they can go
like
in
you could just like
space.
throw them into space and they're like,
Yeah, people have done
So-
this. They put them in space, exposed to the vacuum, brought them back to Earth, and they come back alive. You can expose them to intense
Wow.
gamma radiation.
they're like the Hulk.
Yeah, they're like the
Yeah.
Hulk, right? And so this is why everyone loves them. Partly because they look cute.
Are there tardigrade fans? Because
Any
they have like
tardigrade
a
fans?
cult following.
Yeah, there are people who are like,
That's who you're up against.
Yeah, well,
Just
no.
so
So,
you know.
let me just be
Before,
clear.
like, watch yourself.
Let me be clear. So, I love tardigrades as much as anyone.
Now he says this.
I
Yeah,
really
now.
do. They're wonderful creatures, and I don't want to be seen as a tardigrade hater. That nothing could be farther from the truth.
a tardigrade.
Yeah,
tardigrade.
Having said that, there's actually a lot to hate, and so
What?
Boo! No, just kidding. Don't kidding.
let me explain. So everyone's like, "Oh, tardigrades, they're so cute with their chubby little legs, and they're little round, and they make this sort of oinking motion when they're eating."
They make an oinking motion when
I mean,
they're
their
eating?
mouths do this because they have this stylet that they punch holes in what they're going to eat, and they suck out the juice, and they go oink, oink, oink,
Yeah.
oink. So
What? That's
Same. I do
great.
that. I do that too. It's
So I was like,
actually really
oh,
fun.
they're so cute, right? Fine. But
Yes.
just because they're cute doesn't mean they want to be your friends. And
So they're all the popular girls in my high school.
there are tardigrades that are predators, and they have nasty, like chewing mouth parts, great big claws they rip things apart with. So there are
Whoa.
some tardigrades that are actually quite menacing, I think. So I don't buy into this idea that tardigrades are just these cute little benign things. They're predators out there trying to kill and eat.
Oh, wow.
The other thing is this whole vacuum of space. In my opinion, tardigrades, no offense, but tardigrades are like a flea infestation that you can never get rid of, even
Oh,
with a nuclear
wow.
bomb
Wow.
or in the vacuum of space. Why would you want that? And why would you want to make it even bigger? Because now you've got like a rat infestation that you can't get rid of. So
They make a cute oinky sound.
Can I make a personal observation? This sounds personal to you. Like, were you wronged by a tardigrade? Like,
I don't know what you're talking about because as I already said, I love tardigrades.
but I don't.
I'm just saying
Is
that
there beef here that we should know about?
not at all. I totally love tardigrades. However, there are some things that I just don't like about them. Another one is, in terms of what kind of animal are they? They basically can't make up their mind. So they have features that are kind of like arthropods, which includes things like ticks and fleas and cockroaches.
Cool.
But they also have features that are like nematode worms, which include things like the pig parasite Ascaris. And so they sort of can't decide which of these two animals they want to be. And I wish they would just make up their minds. Now, I will say that, it does,
Decisions are hard, Wallace.
together.
It's
I know,
tough to
I know.
decide what you want to be.
And it does create opportunity. So Bob Goldstein in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, has done a lot of work starting this system as a way to study evolution of animals, right? So have something that's kind of a missing link in between these two groups is kind of cool from a scientific and evolution point of view. I just don't really, I wish they would just decide. So that's one thing. But then I think the real problem is this whole, resistance to stress thing. First of all, there's the issue that you can never get rid of them when you want to. And as I understand, actually, there was a space mission that ended up crashing on the moon. And now the moon is contaminated with a bunch of tardigrades.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so efforts to identify life on the moon are never going to work out because they're going to just pick up these tardigrades that are still alive there.
Moonigrades.
Yeah, moonigrades. And so from a science point of view, is very interesting. Like, how do they survive all these things?
Yeah.
And, they can apparently survive radiation in a number of ways. So, when you get gamma irradiated, which hopefully you won't, but if you do.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Try to not to do that.
I mean, no more than normal,
No
right?
more so than normal. But yeah, but what happens is the gamma rays come in and they basically will damage your DNA. And
Yeah.
they'll basically take your DNA, which is, this double-stranded molecule. They'll chop a hole in it and break it into two pieces.
Yeah.
And now it turns out that, all cells have the ability to repair those kind of breaks. The problem is if you have more than one or two of them,
Your
after
cells
the
get
DNA
a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, well, they get overwhelmed. And the reason why they're overwhelmed, the real problem is they actually can repair them all. But what happens is as all the DNA gets broken up, the parts float around. And then when your cell tries to fix them, they put the wrong pieces back together again. And you
Silly
get,
cells.
And you get rearrangements. And so that's one of the big reasons why radiation is like a no-no. So tardigrades have all these
No
mechanisms.
matter how delicious it might taste.
Yeah, no matter all the advantages.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No superhero for me.
So tardigrades basically have things like they make a glue molecule that will stick the DNA together after it gets damaged so it can't float away. They basically make a lot more of everything that your cells would normally use to repair DNA
So
damage.
they're like the Klingons of the
They're
animal
just
world.
very, very tough. Yeah.
Anybody know Star Trek fans out there? You know, that like Klingons have like whatever 2 backbones and a bunch of like 2 hearts and all sorts. I mean, whatever plot
They have
device. they
2
needed for the show.
backbones?
Yeah, they have more of
Where would they
everything.
put
They have more of everything.
And a
Maybe
crazy-
they evolved from tardigrades.
Oh my God.
That explains the ridiculous sword thing, because you'd need like 8 little hands to.
Yeah, when you see the tardigrades, they're like, "Pratak."
Yeah.
Do you think Klingons make a oink sound when they eat?
I don't know. I mean, they eat live prey. And so, like, and one of the craziest things, and again, this is just, I guess it's cool, but I also find it just so crazy that it makes me mad, is, again, Bob Goldstein has discovered that one way these tardigrades avoid having the DNA float around is each chromosome builds its own tiny little nucleus around it, unlike everyone else who has one nucleus with all the chromosomes in it.
Oh, cool.
Which is cool.
That's
but
really neat.
How many
Sounds like
chromosomes
Bob
do
is
they have?
cool.
I actually don't know how many.
Okay.
Should we have Bob on the podcast?
You should definitely have Bob on the podcast, because he may have things to say about what I'm telling you today. And that brings me to, I guess, the next thing that I don't really like about tardigrades.
Wait, are we going to talk about what if they got real big?
Airing of grievances.
I'll get to that, but I just want to say this because I just have to get this off my chest. It's been bothering me for a really long time. So, okay, so the radiation part, they have all these molecular methods to deal with it. But what about things like, freezing and dehydration and so on? And it turns out that most of the time when tardigrades are stressed out, like if you dehydrate them, put them in space and so on, they actually express special proteins that are called disordered proteins. So Trace was talking about proteins that have sort of unique folding structures, but tardigrades can make a lot of proteins that have this unfolded sort of random structure, which when you make enough of these proteins, they turn the whole cell into glass.
Whoa.
And by glass, we don't mean, glass like you make by, we don't mean
glass.
silica glass. We just mean the more general term of glass as a material where it's basically, it flows very slowly, so it's almost like a solid, but it's disordered unlike a crystal. So that's why we call it glass. So, okay, on the one hand, scientifically, from a biochemistry point of view, it's very exciting that you can have an organism that turns itself into glass.
Yeah.
But from a social and moral point of view, I find it utterly reprehensible. And here's the reason why.
Okay.
All animals have a nervous system, including tardigrades. They have a tiny little brain. When all of us are faced with a problem in our lives, we use our brains and our wisdom to come up with a solution. And when faced with a problem, we're supposed to do something about it to make the problem better and try to solve the problem. When tardigrades are faced with a problem, they just turn into glass and wait for the problem to go away. What kind of
I don't know.
Who are you, my therapist?
What are you going to say?
No, but-
I was like, have you met Julian?
Julian, what kind of lesson does this send to our children about how to deal with
That
problems?
avoidance is a great tactic, apparently.
Yeah.
You can
It's
become
so
famous
good.
and beloved if you're really good at it.
I guess so.
Okay, but what happens if they get real big?
Okay. So I think I've already explained why. Basically they're annoying enough when they're tiny.
Yeah.
If they got a lot bigger, how much worse would it be? Especially if it was the predatory ones.
Yeah.
The real issue is, could you actually make them bigger? And so I think there are bigger tardigrades, meaning that instead of 0.5 millimeter, they're like 2 millimeters.
Whoa.
Which is like, whoa, yeah. I mean,
That's big.
they can actually eat smaller tardigrades, so that's great.
That's an opinion. That's an opinion.
So something that kills tardigrades, awesome.
That's not great. I'm with it on that. I don't hate that part. No, but the problem is that so one issue with getting big is that tardigrades don't have a circulatory system. They don't have blood vessels. They don't have a heart. They just have.
Is that another reason to not like them?
Well, taking it, yeah, that's true. So it's a typical lazy tardigrade solution, which is they just have this big sack of liquid that all their cells are bathed in, and that's what they do instead of bothering to pump it around.
Why do you
This
talk
is
like
so
this?
great. What tardigrade hurt you?
Liquid sack.
So the point is that basically that works fine because they're so small, so oxygen can diffuse through that liquid surrounding all the cells.
Right.
But that kind of mechanism breaks down when you get too big. Basically, when the distance from the surface of the animal to the cells inside gets too large, diffusion is just too slow, and that's when you have to have a heart pumping blood. So I don't think you can make a tardigrade a whole lot bigger than it is without having some way to pump the blood. Suppose you could, right? Suppose you could engineer a heart into a tardigrade. I still think it might not be able to get very big, and that gets to the question of how tardigrades actually grow, which is pretty wild. Although I actually also don't like it.
So you can skip saying that part.
Yeah,
from now
I think
on.
I got it. I think I got that part. I'm sensing a theme here. Welcome to the Tarda Hate podcast.
And another thing that sucks about tardigrades.
So when a tardigrade is born, like all of us, it's one cell, and then it makes an embryo, and the cells divide. But then at a certain point, it just stops dividing its cells. And then after that point, all further growth is just by making the cells get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Whoa.
Which is pretty cool, actually. Although I don't like it, but it's pretty. So the question, but here's the issue: is that there's also a limit to how big a cell can get for the same reason. So as the cells get bigger and bigger and bigger, now you have the same problem. So even if you have a bloodstream providing oxygen or nutrients to the outside of the cell, once they cross the cell membrane, now it's got to diffuse into the interior of the cell to support all the metabolism inside the cell. And as the cell gets bigger and fatter, it's going to be harder and harder for that oxygen to get deep within. So there's a reason why our cells kind of have limited size. And if you look in a human, some cells are really huge, but those are mostly neurons that send out really long, thin projections. The actual cell body is never that gigantic. Muscle cells get really big, but they have a lot of special mechanisms for pumping stuff around in them. So it would take a lot of work, I think, to engineer tardigrade cells that could be really giant. And without that, the fact that they don't divide when they're growing, I think would put a limit on how big they would be. So I think my message to the world is you don't have to worry. Tardigrades aren't going to get any bigger than they already are.
Unless you're on the team who loves tardigrades.
Yeah.
No, even if you are, I mean, I think you mean that then they would be disappointed.
No, they would be very excited if they got really big.
I don't think so, because I think for those who do love tardigrades, which I'm one of, I love them. Part of what's exciting about them is how tiny they are. It makes them very cute.
Yes.
They are very cute because they're small. And if you watch the movie Ant-Man, you can see a little tardigrade cameo in there as he's like shrinking really small. There's some cute little tardigrades that try and eat him.
See?
Which is cool.
They're a menace.
They tried to kill Paul Rudd.
I know, but you can't.
I'm on
That's
team
the thing.
anti-tardigrade
You
now.
can't kill Paul
You
Rudd.
can't
Look
do
at the
that
man.
to Paul.
He's never aged, the guy. Thank you, Wallace, for answering that question from our listener. Let's give him a round of applause. That was awesome. All right, so we've got about 5 minutes left in our podcast. However, to thank you all for coming here today, we wanted to see, does anybody have a question that we might be able to try and answer here with no research at all?
Why do you do this to us?
I'm mostly doing it because I know how much it makes Julian
I
crazy.
so don't like it.
We could get it wrong.
People think we're right about stuff, and if we're just shooting from the hip.
It's time to glassify.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Julian's going to turn into a little piece of glass. Yes.
So this is for my son Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
He said, "What if humans and other animals evolved to have retractable nails and claws?"
Like cats.
Like cats.
Well, firstly, I think Wallace would dislike them.
He didn't say what if tardigrades evolved.
This was tardigrade free. That's okay. Everything else, fine. Is there anything else that stirs your ire quite like the tardigrade?
I don't know where you're getting this anger vibe from.
From everything,
honestly.
aside from like the part where
This
you were
is
like,
science.
I love them.
There's no
Everything
role
that
for
came
emotion
after.
here.
Let's see. If we had, I mean, the cat claw and like the retractable claw, from what I understand, is like the end of their finger. So it would be like we could retract the last little bit of our finger into something larger. So
And by the way, tardigrades can actually do that to their legs.
And how do you feel about it?
It pisses me off.
You are consistent, and I respect it.
So that would, I think you'd have to really reconstruct how we work with our hands, right? Like you wouldn't be, it'd be a lot harder to be dexterous. We probably wouldn't have a lot of the technology that we have now, right? Because it'd be much harder to get some of those like fine motor movements with retractable fingertips. I'm obviously riffing here.
I think it would be much easier to open your bag of Olestra potato chips.
Oh, true, yeah.
Which would be, I think, a godsend.
You could just whoop.
Yeah, just slice it
That'd be
right
nice.
open there.
What about
That'd be
playing the piano? Would there be ramifications?
Well, you know, what about playing guitar?
You wouldn't need guitar picks
Oh,
anymore. So hey,
yeah.
the guitar pick industry would hate this
It's
evolutionary
true.
option.
You would. That's the final answer, Taylor. The guitar pick industry would go under.
Yeah, that's the answer.
You could
sure that's-
simultaneously pick every string.
Yeah. You
The
wouldn't need to-
harpists would be really fun to watch, though. That would be really cool. I saw another hand up over here.
If like humans or like any other species were to like evolve backwards, it's possible, but like what if they evolve like backwards? Like we grew fins.
I mean, that's whales. right?
True. Good point.
Right? There's the fun fact that whales aren't fish, except they kind of are because we're fish.
Just to restate for the people at home who may not have been able to hear that, she asked, what would happen if humans could evolve backwards? And to Julian's point, have you ever looked at a whale skeleton, right? They have a big skull in the front and then a big spine, and they have the flippers, which sort of look like hands. But then way at the back, they have a tiny little pelvis. I mean, it's big because it's a whale, but tiny for their body size. And then there's sometimes these little vestigial bones coming off of their feet because they used to have other appendages. So what would we look like? I mean, it would be...
But it's not so much evolving backwards, right? It's
right. In that case, it's still moving forward.
But yeah, it's going to fill a new niche, right?
So if the planet floods and we all swim a lot more, maybe our legs might, you could think of it as evolve backwards over millions of years. You know, maybe people with more webbed hands and webbed feet might be able to get around more easily in a flooded water planet. And they might have an advantage of getting food or friends or whatever. They would be able to escape from the evil tardigrades.
Who would have grown to be gigantic.
Yes, they've developed a heart.
Honestly, this sounds like a cool book. I would read this book.
Where fish humans and giant tardigrades do battle. New fictional universe.
I
Perfect. Love it.
Well, we have come to the end of this episode. Thanks to the two audience members for their questions, and also for the listeners at home and for Wallace for asking these ridiculous and absurd questions that we thrive on as a show. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much to the Bay Area Science Festival for having our show on their stage, and to the 70 plus people who came, including people who drove all the way from Southern California to the Bay Area in San Francisco to come and see our show. We were so honored. We're still talking about it. We're still on cloud nine, and this happened like over a month ago. I don't know if I'll ever get over it, to be honest. And thanks to you for listening to this episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate. The show was created, written, and produced by me, Trace Dominguez, and my colleague, Julian Huguet. And in this case, a special thanks to Dr. Wallace Marshall for coming on and letting us laugh at his hate of tardigrades. Today's show was also produced and edited by I was going to say human tardigrade. It's fine that Wallace doesn't like him, but he's cute. He oinks when he eats. He's got 8 legs. Kyle Sisk. This show was associate produced by Sabrina Capello. Our music is thanks to Epidemic Sound, and our intern is Charlie Woodbury, but this is his last week with us. So thanks, Charlie, for being our intern and for helping us with our social videos and making sure that we actually have social videos. So thank you. If you want to be our intern, shoot us an email. Maybe we can help you out and you can help us. Thank you to the listeners who submitted questions featured in this episode. In this case, it would be, of course, Dr. Wallace Marshall, and also Kristina. If you want to submit a question, look for the form down in the show notes. You can email us at hello@that'sabsurdshow.com. Visit our website, that'sabsurdshow.com/ask, or call us on the phone at 302-TAPE-SHOW, TAPESHO. We could not do this show without your questions, tardigrades, or buffets, or whatever it is. If it's weird and it's ridiculous, we want to hear it. Also, thank you to our absurd administrators over on Patreon: Adam, Les, Austin, Jonathan, Dan, Sabrina, The Brain, Hannah, Pinky, Apothecarian, Kristina, and Atomic Straw. Because of your support, we were able to actually travel across the country, in my case, and from LA, and we were able to actually go to the Bay Area Science Festival, and we were able to spend some of our money from our business to be able to do that because of you. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We could not do this literally without your support. And of course, thank you to our newest Patreon subscribers, who are Cindy, Josh, Jinx, and Derek. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have another poll up on the Patreon soon for people to join and be able to vote on future questions. So really great. I'm so happy that you had joined us. We keep this podcast going entirely based on Patreon. There's no other income that we make yet. Obviously, we have a little joke about not having ads yet. I mean, hopefully someday we'll get them. But for now, it's just your support that keeps us going. And we want to keep growing the show. We want to keep growing the Patreon. If you haven't told someone about our show yet, this is the holidays. Now's the time to do it. You're at home, maybe you're with your friends, maybe you're in a Friendsgiving, a friend Christmas, whatever you're doing, you're on vacation, you're somewhere, you're on the beach, you're in the snow, whatever you're doing, tell people about this weird little podcast you've been listening to. Tell them something that you learned from this podcast, and bring some new people to join our little foray here. And finally, of course, a special thanks to those listening on Nebula. They also support the show, aside from Patreon. If you listen on Nebula, just by listening, we're getting a little bit of monetary support. So thank you for that. And Nebula is great because it supports us as independent creators. It lets us stay independent, and it supports all sorts of other independent creators too, and helps us do originals, and we do all sorts of really amazing stuff. If you want to join and support the show by trying Nebula out, we're actually running a sale right now. You can visit go.nebula.tv/that'sabsurd show. It's our landing page where you'll be able to see our sale, what's going on. There's all sorts of stuff happening. And remember, as we say at the end of every episode of the show, thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on That's Absurd. Please elaborate.